In this video, I'm going to show you how a new Excel function called TRIMRANGE can help you deal with situations like this, where you have functions that are going down the page and they just keep going beyond the range that you want. So sometimes we might have a set of data and it's of an unknown length, and so we might have to set up our functions where they aren't referring just to single cells but are referring to a column or a row. Here we can see that we have used the len for length, and we have it just going down, and we can see once we get to row 10, it carries on taking the length of the word next to it, even though there are no longer any words. There's a few ways historically we could have dealt with this. We could have set up some if statements, or we could have had a check to see whether that cell was blank. But now we have this quite convenient function called TRIMRANGE. All we need to do is set up our TRIMRANGE around the range we want to select, and it will trim off any blanks at the beginning or the end. And it's fairly flexible, so we'll look at the default option and then we'll look at the other options with it. In this case here, all we would need to do is place the TRIMRANGE function around our cell reference. So here we can see we've just gone TRIMRANGE A, and what it's going to do is it is going to trim that reference of A to only contain the cells that have the content. And once it hits the blank ones, it's going to trim those off. And we can see that now it is just extended down only as far as the last thing with content in it. This is going to be useful for us anytime we're working with unknown column lengths or row lengths, and we're wanting to make these references where we are just referring to all of it rather than just specific cells. Looking at the help page for it, we can see that the usage is TRIMRANGE, and the first thing we give it is the range. So my example that I showed you, that was just the A for the column A. And then there is two options for how we trim the rows, how we trim the columns. And then for each of those, we can see it's either a 0, 1, 2, or 3. And in each case, 3 is the default, and it's going to trim the leading and trailing blank rows and blank columns. My example, we were only dealing with that single column, but this can extend out to cover rows and columns as well. Whilst these are things we could have done in other ways with if statements and checking if blanks and things like that, this just gives a much nicer, cleaner way of being able to work with our worksheets. I hope you found this valuable. I'm going to be back real soon with more videos on stats, data, research, and random stuff.